You're listening to the Coupling Up podcast. Ending a relationship can be profoundly difficult. Some people go their whole lives without ever truly moving on. So wouldn't it be great to have a professional who can guide you all the way through it? Someone who could give singles struggling with breakups, dating games, or loneliness the best tips for finding healthier romance. Well, you found her. This is the Coupling Up podcast, and this is your host and teacher, Shawn Davis.
Hey, it's Shawn with the Coupling Up podcast. And in today's episode, I'm going to share a Reddit user's question on getting unclear reasoning about breaking up and wondering why everyone keeps saying that they're so great, but not great enough to keep. Coming up now. All right, guys, so let's get into today's dating behavior. Today's topic is really about what modern people call catch and release. And back in the day, it used to be called different things. And we'll get into that when we get into today's Reddit post. So what we're really talking about with today's topic is that dreaded moment that you realize that you're just not a priority to the person you're talking to. And there seems to always be something that comes up when you used to talk all the time. So it's a big change from talking a lot to then, it's just not the attention, not the time, not the intensity you used to have. The sense of interest fading over time and other priorities taking this top spot is where you start to wonder and ask questions. Are they really all that into me? And then you know the story. It's catch and release. Bring up your mind's eye the picture of catching a fish and releasing it back into the wild. That's today's topic. So let's dive into our Reddit rabbit hole story of the week. All right, so let's take a look at today's Reddit post. Our poster says, "It's been a very long time since I've been dating. Must say it's changed a bit. Am baffled though. I never remembered being dumped so quickly, so frequently into the phrases such as, you're one of the good ones, or you're the catch, or something similar. If I'm the catch, why am I getting thrown back into the water? If the sex was so good, as you say it was, you're great, why am I being fired? To make matters more baffling, the women uttering said lines were all looking for LTRs, as am I." Now, I realize those phrases are just variations on the classic, "it's not you, it's me" line. But the classic line doesn't genuinely imply any positivity with regards to being dumped. The modern variation does. Reaching out to the women here. What's the deal here? Do you have a go-to dump line? Would you use something like that one? All right, so now what we're going to do is break apart the important components as we dissect today's Reddit post. The important aspects to this story are going to be some of the common ones that we look for when relationships aren't thriving really well. And so we're going to use some of those tools to help us sort through all of that. The first thing that I think is really important here is that there was some time from the last dating scenario, which is one of our really common soft spots in dating, is where we have this catch and release victim here who had remembered dating and had these kind of reflections of how it used to be, and so they hadn't had any recent dating experience. So this was kind of like updating the data bank to what the dating environment is like now versus how it used to be. So the time from your last dating scenario means you're going to be more vulnerable to dating problems just because you don't know really what's going on. And so this can cause you to put up blinders right away and not see things because, you're putting possibly a lot of hopes and dreams into the scenario. And so the dreams that you have belong in your heart, not on another person. And we have to be careful not to take our positive wishes and to put that onto this new dating scenario, because we really don't know what pathway this is going to go down yet. It might be somebody that you really connect with, the timing is great, and you guys have a lot of energy and thriving to be able to give to this, and that would be, a great situation. But remember that when there has been time from your last dating scenario, we have to remember to bring your patience with you. It's a tool in your tool belt. And no matter how old you are, you want to remember that people marry and couple up, even very late in life. I even witnessed a wedding at a nursing home once. So you want to make sure that patience is part of your repertoire when you're bringing that into a dating scenario. Um, the other tip that I think, or not tip, but the other scenario here that I think is really important is that this person got some love bombing. And if you haven't caught any of the episodes that I've recorded so far, then you might not really know the definition we're talking about in this podcast about love bombing. We're basically talking about front loading compliments. That's really what love bombing is. But when you don't have trust and intimacy built up yet, then you're going to find that it's going to be conveyed more as love bombing versus authentic compliments. So, one example I have of this is I dated this guy in a gym back in Nashville. And when I was dating there, it was a really nice guy, really athletic guy, but I felt insecure with my body dating that person. And they started giving me compliments, and it sounded like really kind of corny lines that you might find in a movie. And I don't doubt that this person, was really trying to be nice. But it can cause you to feel insecure when there is that foundation that's not quite there yet. So remember that that can be a scenario with this love bombing. It might be compliments loaded too soon, but it could also go down an abusive road where that's used as a tool to disarm you. And so love bombing can cause you to, feel like the thing that you're in, it just isn't a trusting situation. But when it's used in an abusive way, these compliments can be something that makes you not put your guard up. And so if you're letting that guard down to somebody who's giving you all these wonderful compliments, you're going to feel like it's a trusting situation. They're not a scammer. They're not out to, hurt your heart or anything. And all those compliments makes you not question and not doubt. And that's what we want to stay away from, is letting your guard down too soon. And making sure, we're not in these kind of abusive situations, or, if we're feeling like it's too soon for compliments, we're conveying that and setting boundaries and expectations, so that we're getting our needs met, right? Okay, so moving on to part 3 that I thought was important to pick apart on this example was the frequency of this happening to this person. It almost sounds like they might be stuck in a pattern and they don't know the signs or cues to really focus on. And that gets quite frustrating for people. So ultimately, when you find yourself in similar scenarios, so let's say that you're finding yourself with, people with drinking habits, and you're somebody that wants to live a sober life, then there might be environments, there might be things that you find yourself attracted to that you can start to pick apart and find out, what is it about these people? What's the common thread? Am I, leaning into things I don't want anymore, just by not understanding my current values? So that can be a part to for this person that we might look at. And then the last thing I thought that was really important to look at is that this kind of breakup sort of scenario, he called it dumping, it seems to be very nice, and that makes him really confused. So again, we have to look at the follow through on meeting nice people. You have to sometimes look past the words that people are saying and look at their behavior instead. So those are the four qualities to this example that we want to break apart before we get into what to do with it. Okay, so let's dissect our red flags that we can catch here with this catch and release scenario. So you might find yourself in a catch and release scenario if you found yourself attracted to somebody, you have not defined the relationship. So we're not calling it a relationship. We're not calling it hooking up. We're not calling it Netflix and chill. We're not calling it anything. So it's this ambiguity that you're dealing with. So it's not defined. It's just kind of we're hanging out. We don't know if we're friends. We don't know what we are. So a catch and release can happen if you're undefined, if love bombing is present, and you find that fading over time. So interest and all those positive compliments and things, it starts to fade. Conversation can start to fade. And when this is happening frequently, you may be stuck in a pattern with people like this. But ultimately, I want you to look for those scenarios where there's this kind of ambiguity around what we are, as well as compliments and interest fading over time as your major red flags to catch and release. To our catch and release Reddit poster, I would say this to you today. You're absolutely correct about dating changing a lot since you first learned about these kinds of dating traps. People are hiding more and more, and finding an authentic partner means we got to sort through so many dates. It's exhausting, and you might really feel like giving up right now. So take this tip: be patient with the end goal. Stop and focus on the values of yourself. Values are going to be things like valuing authenticity, honesty, respect, beauty, strength, getting down to the core of what you really are as a person. So go beyond the sex. Go beyond the promises that these people are making for you, or making to you, and look for reasons why these partnerships are either empty or why they're meeting your needs. So not just it feels good, I have a spark, but what feels good specifically? Where is the spark? When is the spark? When is it not there? You have to get down to these kind of details. And when I say all of this, I know that you might really like this partner and the people that have happened, when this has happened to you in the past. And I bet they feel really good at the time. But the truth is that anyone who walks away from you, they're showing you their heart. And when they do that, you have to listen. You might have some things that you can work on in your heart too, working on tolerance and the slow pace of bonding and connection. Getting down to the details, like we were saying. It's okay to want someone, but but I want you to hold back trusting them until you have that firm foundation of identity together. So trustworthiness is built over time by showing trustworthy behavior, not empty promises. Hold back fantasizing about casual daters, even ones that you want to turn into, a big thing. You have to have a firm, defining the relationship foundation before you really start getting into trusting a lot. But to answer your question, here's the deal from a really raw, open place. People do this because they're empty. They're trying to fill a void in their lives. They sometimes are lonely and feeling playful, and then they get on to swiping on the apps. But the thing is they do that without having real motivation for the dream that you guys are creating together as you talk. So sometimes this can be just a lesson for you to learn to guard your heart until you are at a safer spot. you'll have to work through your own unique patterns of relationships, finding out what makes you go down this pathway with people who do not protect your heart. And it may be that, it's just a blinder thing, is that you're not seeing the real qualities of this person. And just that little bit of mind shift away from having the soulmate, the right person, and really getting down to, is this person really following through on their commitments to me? And if they're not, walk away from those scenarios, no matter how much they promise you and love you, is you have to walk away from things that do not have real authentic safety built into it. So even as a guy, with all the toxic masculinity that gets thrown around, is you might feel like being with your feelings is bad, but researchers have found like being with feelings is a really good thing. So be with your feelings, walk away from things that make you feel insecure or that just aren't getting that commitment that you want. Give them a chance to commit to you. But if they don't, and if you don't turn it into anything that's really real, like walking down a pathway of meeting in person if you're online only, or walking down the pathway of going on a formal date, make sure that you're going down the pathway that makes you feel like you are your truest self and you're bringing to the table the pieces of you that really are who you are, right? And so that's the tips that I would have for our Reddit poster for today. And if you recognize your Reddit post on or one of our dating confessions where our callers will leave messages, audio messages for us to play on the show. Being a newer show, we don't have a lot of them just yet. So we are relying on our Reddit post right now. So again, if you see yourself on the show, we would love to hear from you as a friend of the show. And you can go to couplinguppodcast.com. And then if you are just somebody who browsed upon this show, feel free to go there to leave your own dating confession. You can also shoot me an email anytime at shawn.davis@renewbodymind.com. I'll see y'all next time.
Thank you for listening to the Coupling Up podcast. Shawn is a professional, licensed clinical social worker, and it's her mission to help you find healthier romance. We hope you've gotten some useful and practical information from this show. And we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, go to the website, renewthelove.com. While there, learn how to send messages in a dating app that shine. A free quickie course. Also, find the Readiness to Date checklist. Identify if you're ready to date or need to focus on healing first. See you next time on the Coupling Up podcast.